Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching. So in this video, I'll be showing you how to paint a smooth meadow with a technique called wet on wet. So we'll be wetting the paper first and then applying colors wet on wet. We'll start from the top. So we have the sky and then we'll be moving down. And then once we start applying colors toward the meadow, that's when we want to use undertones. So we'll start with yellow undertones. If you would like to watch a full class, please join me on Patreon where I have hundreds of classes, real-time recorded classes where I talk while I'm painting, and then voiceover tutorials, and then there's some real-time videos, lots of tips, and I always share my sketches so you can download them, references, full list of art supplies, and all the tips that come along with those posts. So I hope to see you there. This is my flat 24 Raczynska. I'm gonna grab more like a milk-like ratio of phthalo blue, and then I want some of this quin red as well at the same time. I don't want these to be too mixed together. I want to show different shades of that blue. I'm gonna grab now just the phthalo blue actually. And the idea is when you paint the sky, you don't want to stop like in the middle really like this. No, you want to continue with your strokes and keep going. So you want to change the shade of that blue. So now I just grab some more of the phthalo blue. And it doesn't have to be like perfectly layered. You just want to have continuous strokes because that alone will dry smooth anyway. I'm going to grab more like a half and half like ratio of the two colors together because I want this to be a little darker on top, the sky. And I'm going to do the same thing, which is more like a milk like ratio of that meadow yellow, and then there's my quin red, right? So the two colors, and somewhere here is where I see that those two colors. Now it's a transition. It's like you see a little bit of orange, you see them yellow. So we want to show the same thing. That's why you're not mixing the colors on a palette prior. You are mixing colors on the paper. So for example, this could be a little more yellowish. So we have some sun in there, right, peeking through. So might as well make this a little more yellow. Plus we're gonna have the trees in there too. And we would be using yellow undertones anyway for the trees. So I'm gonna grab a little more of that yellow and red, so quinacridone red, and some of this yellow, so imidazolone yellow. And remember that the ratios between the colors need to change each time you grab those colors. So right now, what I'm gonna do is grab this kind of like a milk-like ratio of imidazolone yellow and some of this iso yellow. I have a little too much of that iso yellow. I'm gonna also grab some of this raw sienna. And this is where I have this little slope here, and I feel like this is a little too diluted with water. When you feel like the paint is too diluted with water, you might as well wipe your brush a little bit on a towel and continue. So this is where I have this meadow. I'm gonna grab more of that yellow, both of the yellows basically. And this is my slope, right? So you want to continue going down in those areas because this is drying faster now, and I am still working on the meadow, and I want this to be all together, like flowing well. So I grab more of the yellow, the two yellows. I'll show you how I'm grabbing it. This is iso yellow, and this is more like a half and half like ratio now actually. And here we have this path. So this is where I'm going to grab some of this iso yellow and quinacridone red, so it feels more orange, but I want to have this undertone because we can see the reflections from that sun. We can feel that warmth from the sun over the path, right? And another thing is I was talking about is to clean the edges of the washi tape. It's important not to touch the watercolor paper. So you want to clean it because what can happen very easily is that paint and water might easily drip down to your painting, and then you're gonna have a bloom. So we don't want that. I'm not done with the meadow yet, but I'm pretty much done with the sky for now. So I just need a little more paper and to remove the excess. Now I want to grab some of that maybe milk-like ratio of this yellow here, and I'm going to start introducing shades of green. So I'm going for these mid-tones. I have a little too much water here. So I'm grabbing a little more of the sap green, more like a half and half like ratio, and I'm going to squeeze a little bit more of the imidazolone yellow. So I have imidazolone yellow and sap green. I don't want too much of the water because everything is drying, and if I have too much water, then it's very easy to create a bloom. And somewhere here, this is where I want to focus actually. And you know what? I forgot to add in this spot some of the ISO yellow with quinacridone red for my path, right? So there it goes. A little bit of that ISO yellow here, maybe more here. There you go. I'm gonna clean this brush. Need to be careful so that water doesn't drip towards the sky. And then back to this brush where I had some of this ISO yellow, imidazzolone yellow and sap green. So I want to create a nice volume here, and the values are important. So I want to make the foreground darker, plus we have all these shadows. I'm going to start grabbing also some of this hooker's green, which is my additional shade of the green, and placing it like, just as I see in the reference. This is more greenish, and then we have all this in the background. Now, it's nice when the paper feels wet, because then the colors keep spreading, and we do want that, because then we don't see like these individual strokes. And another thing is, that's why you want to actually use a larger brush, because then you don't have like smaller visible strokes, right? And that's why it's important. Now the ratios change between the water and paint, so it becomes thicker and thicker. That's because the paper is drying, so we need to have more and more control. And this is my sap green and phthalo blue on top of that, okay? So it's like more and more, I'm adding more and more on top. And I also didn't clean my brush, so I still have sap green, hooker's green, imidazzolone yellow, and then there's my sap green, the phthalo blue. You can tell now that I'm using this cream, or not cream, but heavy cream-like ratio between water and paint, because the paint is just not spreading as much, and plus the paper is of course not as wet anymore, right? So that's another reason. And here I'm just gonna quickly dab on it, and it's almost like I should be thinking about switching to a smaller brush too, because I have like smaller things to work on. I'm just gonna add a little more of this with this brush. It's just that this brush holds a lot of water and paint. It's a larger brush, so I have to remember that too, that I'm going to have more water with it. I'm gonna grab a little more of this heavy cream of, this is my sap green, phthalo blue, and I'm gonna grab a tiny bit of this Van Dyke brown. And just to make this a little darker, this part. So this is my foreground. So I want this to be a little darker. And then here, this is all drying super fast. I'm gonna wipe my brush actually with a towel. That'll give me more control now, just because I wanna show that slope. And then we're gonna add some more of that foliage there, but I'm grabbing a little more of the this is Van Dyke brown, just because I have like these bushes, but I don't want to actually paint the trees, right? I just want to make it a little darker. And then this part, just to show like the volume, and I'm trying to create the dimension. And to create a dimension, we need shadows. And then I'm going to grab maybe a little more water. This is my Van Dyke brown here and quinacridone red. I could grab even some of this indigo. I'm sorry, the phthalo blue. And this is for the path. So I do want this to be heavy cream-like ratio between water and paint. So again, Van Dyke brown, quinacridone red, some of the phthalo blue. And just like we see the path, in the same direction, right? We need to apply these colors in the same direction. I feel like I don't have enough of this Van Dyke brown anymore. I'm gonna have to quickly squeeze it before it's all too dry. So you can use the side of a brush too if you're using a flat brush. So I need to make sure that you can see all of this perfectly good, because my last video of this meadow, as I was recording it, I realized that it was out of focus. So I was not happy about that. And I have to hurry up because this is all drying and I still want to add some foliage in the background. So I'm going to squeeze first some of this Van Dyke brown, and I'm quickly going to grab this Van Dyke brown with quin red and this phthalo blue. And if I want it to be darker, then I'm going to grab more of that phthalo blue. And actually I'm going to grab even indigo, just to make it even darker. And then just like if you see that path, right? I want to show the same thing, more of that indigo. And then I can also add it towards the grass. Another thing what we're gonna do is with the rigger brush, we're going to add some those grass strokes, so they'll also help us to shade it a bit. So we need more like darks in the foreground. And we do have like these shadows and so on. We'll work on that later. If we want to, I'll show you the version where I have these cast shadows. So if you like that, that's the way to go basically. And I'll show this to you in a second. Or you can see these actually under the post because I'll be attaching all that. So here we have some of that foliage. And I need to add more of it, but I do need to switch to a different brush. That's another thing. So I'm going to quickly clean this brush. Actually, I don't like how this is perfect. It should not be perfect because nothing like in nature is really perfect. So I don't want like a perfect path here. So I'm going to clean the brush now. This is my 24. And I'm going to grab my smaller brush, so my round 8. Grab some of this cream top-like ratio between water and paint of Van Dyke Brown and the greens. And this is where, like for example, I want this tree, right? So this is where I'm gonna grab it, and I'm also gonna grab some of this ISO yellow. So ISO yellow from the left side because that's where the sun is hitting this tree. And then we can add some more foliage along. So it all depends how wet your paper is. And so to determine like how much more you can work on this painting. You can add different colors. You can add some of this burnt sienna, and I had a little too much water, so I need to wipe my brush on a towel and go through it quickly so it doesn't spread too much, that water. So more of that Van Dyke Brown with some of these yellows, and I'm sorry, the greens, the shades of green, maybe some more of the Van Dyke Brown, and just kind of you're like dabbing on it to add some of this foliage, and then to separate this kind of this slope here. You can also add some more trees like they're behind basically. And then here, if I want to add any more to it, I would be just adding it like this. So I want to show that perspective, so why not do that as well? So maybe some Quinn Red, Van Dyke Brown, and more of that the Phthalo Blue. So let's go for the darkest parts over the path. And just kind of pull it again and disturb the paint a little bit. And then this is the area where we also need to think about adding some foliage. But let's go back here towards the top, because one of the areas that's gonna dry faster is like here, right here. So cream top-like ratio at this point, everything you're grabbing from your palette, it needs to be thicker paint. So the ratio needs to be like cream top, so it feels like creamy paint, right? Otherwise, if you have any more water, then it's very easy to create a bloom. And then you can continue like creating little trees as well. And we can add the water in there in the background too, the mountains. That's all like something that we can do later. We don't need to think about it right now. There was that tree here that I was thinking about. I guess I'll be showing you my other version. You can decide like how you want to go about it, because in my the painting in between the test piece and my last painting, like I showed more of that tree here, and it's just there's parts that we always like something better in this version or the other version, so that's just the way it is. And then here maybe something. So it's time for me to grab my rigger brush. So I'm going to show you what you can do with the rigger brush. So I'm going to clean my round 8, and there's my rigger brush. And keep an eye on the sky, because it could be like a drop of water or something. You never know, because you're so busy working these parts. So this is going to be cream top again, cream top like ratio between water and paint of the sap green, some of this Van Dyke Brown, maybe some Phthalo Blue, right? And then you're going back to these grassy parts and you're pulling the paint. So this is cream top like ratio between water and paint. So you're creating individual strokes. I need more paint, right? So I'm grabbing more, and if you want to create more shadows, then you need to grab more of the blue, and you could also add some indigo, but I would be careful with that so it doesn't become too dark too. But then if you do make it darker, then it's easier to see it, the difference, and plus you're creating contrast. So let me grab some more of that. and then come back here to this side because this is all drying fast and I haven't even worked on this section yet too much. Like I need to add way more. And then we have some grass on the road too. Another thing we're gonna do is lift colors. So keep an eye on how wet the paper is because there will be a time that we can't lift anymore, right? So we wanna time it well. And it's okay if you can't lift this painting. It's okay. Like your painting will still look beautiful even without lifting. It's just something to practice because lifting does help you like bring back the highlights. For example, we bring back the highlights and it looks nice too because we're brushing through the areas at the same time. So this is much drier, right? And I'm not gonna really lift much here because this is in the background, but I do want to add a little more color cream top with this little brush just to show maybe there's some tree here or something like that, like smaller trees. And then we have this road, the side of the road here. So I keep pulling, right? Pulling with this brush. And I do want it to be a little darker, so I'm grabbing some indigo this time. Just here maybe. And then the grass would be going different directions. You wouldn't be pulling it in one direction. You always have to think about it. It doesn't look natural if it's stick straight up. No, you have to think about like how to position your arm, and it's very random, like those strokes. Nothing is perfect. Just always think about it like there's nothing perfect in nature. Like there's no two petals that look exactly the same. And that's how you want to think about like your artwork too.